this special Zoom session for the Executive Leadership Programs, the University of Tennessee Executive Leadership Institute and the Tennessee Higher Education Innovation and Leadership Fellows Program. It's good to see so many of our alumni on the program, and I've noticed that there's enrollment managers and strategic planning officers from several other institutions that are on the line. I think you're going to find this to be an exciting conversation, and in order to start that off, I want to introduce to you Melissa Meredith, who's the Director of Institutional Partnerships with StraighterLine, and Ms. Renee Eborn, who's the Assistant Vice President for Strategic Initiatives at Utah State University. And also with us is Mr. Michael Purcell, who's the Executive Vice President for StraighterLine as well. And with that, Melissa, I'm going to give you control of the screen and let you walk us through the fascinating concept that Utah State has partnered with StraighterLine to achieve.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity to spend about 60 minutes with you to talk a little bit about StraighterLine, how we're helping support colleges and universities across the United States, specifically highlighting our partnership with Utah State today. So thank you so much, and thank you, Bob, for setting this up for us. We really appreciate it. So with that said, here's what we're going to cover today, just briefly. And at the end, we're going to leave a lot of time for discussion and Q&A. So hopefully it's a very engaging conversation, and we pique your interest along the way, so you have a lot of questions for us. We'll quickly go through introductions and spend a minute probably on the higher education landscape. I think we all know where we are today. And talk a little bit about StraighterLine, how we're helping address some of these challenges that we're seeing in the marketplace today. But obviously, the highlight of our presentation is what we're doing with Utah State to help them with students that they weren't actually getting into the university. So I'm going to let Renee talk about that, and then talk about what it is, the program, our online pathway programs, how it actually helps your students at the institution, what are some of the successes and outcomes we've seen, and then go into hopefully that lively discussion that we'll have in the end. So Renee, do you mind if I just turn it over to you to give yourself just a brief introduction on a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet with you today. My name is Renee Eborn, and I am the Assistant Vice President here at Utah State University. I have about 3 different areas that I work in. I run strategic initiatives for the institution because of my background in implementing technology and change management at institutions. I also have a strong background in online education. I've been doing that work for about 2 decades, and I oversee our online school, as well as just recently I have been working with our IT division to help digitally transform some of our student services around that. So nice to meet you all. I am currently located in northern Utah, and it's a beautiful day here. So it's nice to be with all of you.
Thank you, Renee. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Certainly. Good afternoon, everybody. Mike Purcell. I am EVP of StraighterLine University Partnerships. So I work with Melissa and others to talk to universities to see if we can deliver some value to them. And then once there is a partnership going on, part of my organization makes sure that we are delivering what we say they are, and that the universities are getting the full value from the partnership with us. So thank you very much for listening today, and I'll be around to answer questions if there are any that come up.
Super. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. So everybody, as you can see, I'm Melissa Meredith. I am the Director of Institutional Partnerships for StraighterLine, and that basically means I'm out talking to college and university leaders like yourself about StraighterLine and our online pathways program, educating them a little bit about what we do, and then also figuring out how we can help them with their students in their educational journey. So again, thank you, I appreciate it, and let's go ahead and get kicked off here. So I know you guys are all reading the headlines today, so there's nothing on this slide you're probably not familiar with. But just even though there's a lot of alarming news we're seeing, we're here to help you. And there is some silver lining in what's transpired over the last 18 to 20 months. And I think what it has highlighted is we really are starting to see the silver lining in that we're understanding our students' needs better and adapting. However, we still see some challenges within our current colleges and universities and how we're going to support that going forward. But just quickly, there's about 60% of first college students who go into colleges and universities after high school that aren't ready for that environment. There's about 1 million students who start that are not ready and underprepared for the rigors of a college. And then there's about 36 million Americans that have some college and no degree. And then I think really a big number is the 14 million adults that are actively working and enrolled in both post-secondary education and some training to just improve themselves. And how do we support those numbers today within higher education and really help solve some of the challenges that we have with some of these numbers? And I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing to help colleges and universities today. So a little bit about StraighterLine. I don't know how many of you on the call today have heard of us or are familiar with StraighterLine, but about 12 years ago, our founder, Burke Smith, had a clear vision on what he wanted to do to help students with their educational journey. And he created a solution for them that is high quality, is very affordable, it's flexible, and it provides a very limited risk for students. And we'll talk more about that. Last year, of course, we saw a pretty big influx in students. We supported about 40,000 students who took our courses. Since we started the business, there has been about 300,000 students who've taken StraighterLine courses. And today we have almost 150 accredited colleges and universities across the United States who are actually partners of ours. We provide them with over 60 ADA compliant Gen Ed courses today. All of our courses have been reviewed and recommended by ACE. And they continue to be reviewed on a regular basis and have to be renewed every 3 years with them. We use the Quality Matters instructional design principles, and also we have the Distance Education Accrediting Commission quality curriculum that's been approved. I think what's really neat is we actually won the EQUIP program that was actually led by the Department of Education. It actually deemed our courses to be such high quality that we were only one of the 8 alternative credit providers that were selected to participate in their program. So we're pretty proud of that. So that's a little bit about us. If you didn't know of us or know our name, that gives you a little idea of what we're all about. So before I turn it over to Renee, I just appreciate Bob teeing this up for us when he sent the meeting invite out in the content. We are a true partner, and I'll let Renee talk to this, who invests in your success. And again, like I said, Burke really wanted to provide our customers with that affordable, low-risk option and on-ramp for students to earn their degree. We have proven better student outcomes and experiences that we will talk about. And also, what's really unique about our program is the students stay in your pipeline. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. But right now I wanted to hand it over to Renee and let her talk a little bit about Utah State and their earned admission program that we're working with them on.
Thank you for that. So Utah State University, just let me give you a little bit of background information about Utah State University. Utah is part of a Utah system of higher education system. We actually have we're part of a system. Most of the schools in Utah are part of the system, so we're funded by the legislature, and we all have different missions. And Utah State University, our mission is we are the land grant school. And so because Utah doesn't have, we have not as many community colleges as many state systems have, Utah State, sometimes we are often, referred to as kind of, because we're the land grant school, we have the mission of providing that community education to our post-traditional students and to a very diverse population within the state. And so usually when we make decisions about technology or curriculum or anything like that, they do have to go up through our commission and through our system of higher education within the state. And so because of that, sometimes that makes it a little challenging to do some things, because you have to, there's a lot of checks and balances, and there's a lot of different people that need to be involved. But over the last few years, as a state and as a school, we've been very concerned about our students and about providing the right opportunity. As many of you are probably very well aware, higher education, we're being questioned all the time about our value and about how much we cost, and with all of the things that are going on. And so we wanted to take a really good holistic look at ourselves and say, are we truly providing the right education to our students? And we realized that we had some growth areas that we could improve upon when we did this evaluation. And so we looked at our admissions process, and we realized that we were limiting, we had some admission standards, which most institutions do. And our admission standards, we had a good 400 or 500 students each fall semester that we were declining because they didn't meet our admission standards. And we wanted to do something about this. We were very concerned about this, and we wanted to figure out a way to maybe be able to provide opportunities and pathways for these diverse student populations. And a lot of the reasons why the reasons is because they were, they had to work, they come from different backgrounds. We also have a lot of students that live out in very rural areas and have rural needs that kind of lend themselves to making it hard for them to come to a traditional campus. And so we looked at that, and we wanted to do something about that, but we realized internally that we did not have the internal resources to be able to scale to that large. And we knew that it was going to be challenging for us. Even though we do have campuses throughout the state, we just realized that we needed some help. And because of my background in technology and implementation and such, we decided, we knew, there's 4 things you need to be successful in change management or culture change. You need to have a really good executive sponsor at your institution, a president or provost or leadership that, believes in doing these things. You need to be able to have good programming around things like this. You also need to have good communication plans. And then the 4th thing I think is very important is you have to have and leverage really good partnerships. And in higher education, sometimes we tend to be a little biased around this, and we're a little scared to reach out into industry and to partner with industry because of the cost and because of our protection and our lens around our brand and what we care about. And so realizing that is kind of the case within our state, we decided that we needed a partner. We needed someone that could help us scale. We needed help in understanding what we could do to support these students and to reach out to these students. And so we started looking around for some educational technology providers as well as people in this space, because there is a lot of providers. And we moved forward with a partnership with StraighterLine, which we have been very happy about. It's been going very well. And what our earned admissions program is that we've developed in partnership with StraighterLine is that instead of sending letters that you cannot come to the institution, we don't send decline letters anymore. What we do is we tell them that, our minimum requirement is this, and if you don't meet this requirement, we have some different pathways for you, and you can earn your admission status and you can still come to school. And you can do this at a very low cost model. If you could flip the slide for me, the very low cost model. And so our message has been changed, and we're telling them, if you want to come, we want you. We want you to be part of our institution, and we want you to be part of it. And we have created these pathways. And we wanted to make sure too that these pathways in this earned admissions program that we developed, we didn't want our students, we didn't want this to be a financial burden for them. We didn't want this to be eating into their financial aid, into their Pell Grants, and if they had to retake things, we wanted to make it very flexible. And so this worked very well with the StraighterLine model, because we were able to offer them some courses on a subscription model that they could do at their own pace. However, we did set up a student journey with them where if they did want to come fall semester and join the traditional fall semester students, if they finished by certain times, we would be able to approve them and they could move into the institution. And so they could do these courses, they're completely online, and they could do these courses on their own time and with their own pace with a very, very substantial support model, which StraighterLine helped us support and to scale. And so if you can click to the next slide, one of the things that we did is, so if students come in and if they want to do that, they can come right to our academy basically, and they can look at their courses, and then they can call in and they can register for these classes and talk to someone. And the people that, when they click that button to call someone, that 1-800 number, that number goes right to our StraighterLine partners. And we have worked together to develop a student journey onboarding process for them that is USU driven. It's our messages, it's our model, and it's implemented in a partnership with StraighterLine. And so our students can come in, they can ask questions, they can start, and then they have that flexibility to do the courses on their terms. So we're meeting them where they are and providing a pathway that's personalized for them in order to allow them to be successful. And we did this very quickly. We started last summer, we did this, we planned it, and we launched in the fall for that. And we've been going for a year. And we've had some great success. We currently have about 70 students that are actively working towards their earned admission status. And we're seeing that the conversion rates are actually better than some of our own conversion rates in some of our on-campus programs. We have some actual on-campus programs, which we call connections as well. And we're seeing that our students in our new pathway programs are doing really, really well. And so we're very excited about that. And we're hoping that in the next year that this will even increase and that we'll see that increase. But what's nice about that is we have that scalability and we have that support structure that we would not necessarily have if we were trying to do this on our own. And so I think it's really important that from our pilot's perspective, we feel like it's been a very successful pilot so far because we have students that normally we would have just declined and we wouldn't have done anything with. And now we actually are providing that, that pathway, and we have been able to do that in a very reasonable and in a very affordable way that meets our quality and our brand at the institution. And so we've been very happy about that. In the fall, when we started with these students, keep it there for a second. When we started, I did want to mention, I don't want to take too long, but I did want to mention when we started this, last summer we had already gone through our recruiting process. So we had already declined like a lot of these students, like more than half of these students had received a letter that said, sorry, you don't meet the admissions requirement. So a lot of them, probably either went to a different institution or they gave up and took a gap year. So when we did it in the fall, we didn't have as many, but we're recruiting right now. And in this recruitment cycle for this year, we're seeing a lot more positive response, and we're seeing an increase in numbers because we're not even sending that decline letter. Now we're saying, yes, you can come, but this is the way you come. You come, you earn admissions, and then you can move forward and be successful. And so the pilot from that perspective has been very successful in that case, because we feel like that it's going to grow. And it's also it's provided that doing that little brief pilot has given us the confidence, one, that we can work in a partnership with an industry ed tech partner, and also that we can continue to do more. And so if you want to move to the next slide, some of the things that we're brainstorming and we're planning over the next few months and over the next few maybe years, hopefully, is we want to expand this a little bit. We're looking into expanding into a phase 2. We offer a competency-based education program for our associates, the science degree, for our workforce partnerships. And we're hoping that we'll be able to leverage a lot of the courses that StraighterLine offers, because we don't have enough faculty members on campus to teach them all in the format that we need. And so that's going to be able to help us scale so that we can do some workforce partnerships. We have some opportunities with some industry here in the state of Utah, as well as some national industries where we need to be more flexible. And this is going to allow us to be more flexible. We're also working with, we have a very large homeschool and early college communities in some of our rural areas. And so we're looking at adopting some of these creative pathways for those students as well. And we've had a hard time with our CBE programs being flexible from term to term because of our technical debt, because of our SIS systems, and because of our current infrastructure we have, and we haven't been able to digitally transform as quickly as we'd like. And so we are looking at ways to be able to open flexible enrollment, leveraging our StraighterLine partnership. And we're hoping that this will help us as well with some of our post-traditional students that are going to be coming back to school that may not be as prepared because they've been out of that learning life cycle in that regard. And so we're looking forward to creating some of these new opportunities and encouraging growth in education within our state. And so that's kind of our experience and what we've done. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else, Mike or Melissa, that you wanted me to touch on. Did I cover that, like what you were hoping, or did you have anything else you would want me to focus on?
No, I think that's fine. And I think at the end, we'll probably have some questions from the folks in Tennessee. So I don't know if, Mike, if there's anything from your perspective.
Nope, nothing to add.
Okay.
Okay. All right, super. Thank you so much, Renee, for sharing your experience.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'll stay on, and I'm happy to answer questions as we move forward. And
fantastic. Thank you so much. So I think Renee talked a little bit about what we're currently doing for Utah State in conjunction with them, but also some of the additional pathways and student populations they're looking at serving. So today we partner with many colleges and universities, like I mentioned before. And what, the different pathways really depend on the needs and goals of the institution. So again, everything is delivered under the institution's brand. It's on your domain, and they're always your students. So once we develop and work with you on online learning pathways and degree programs, we're going to sit down and discover, hey, what business challenge or problem can we help you solve? So I think one of the problems we're solving for many institutions today is that if you think about colleges having that student funnel, right? So interested students are at the very top, and your graduated students are at the very bottom. And there are students that are falling out of that funnel along the way. So interested students, they may not apply, your applicant may not enroll, your enrollments may drop out and eventually need to come back to the institution. And today, I think colleges and universities really don't have a great answer for some of these students when they do fall out of the funnel. So that's exactly why we've created our online learning pathway program. And like I said, we work collaboratively with the institution to really augment what you're doing today. We're not going to replace anything that you're doing. However, we want to help you get those students back to your institution who maybe never came, who fell out of that funnel. And so that's what these pathways address. So for instance, our customers typically have 2 to 4 gen ed courses in their online learning pathways that we are working with them on. We support a very diverse student population. Like we said, it could be the traditional student that don't meet the admission requirements like at Utah State. It could be the traditional students who had the test scores but never got admitted, or did get admitted, but they weren't academically ready for college just yet. But it could be that non-traditional student as well, like the adult learners who lack the confidence, or they've been out of the learning environment for quite a while, and they just need that additional support service that we're going to provide for them. And then also it could be that, hey, I've got a really hectic life right now. I'm working, I'm a full-time mom or dad, and I need to figure out a better balance and schedule so I can get back to school, so we're able to serve that adult population as well. As you can see, there are several examples. We've worked with so many institutions, and as we go through the discovery process, we really help them identify what student populations do you need help with. So these are just a few examples of the different type of pathways that we've identified for institutions today. But again, there could be others on here that we are not, aware of today, but institutions have the need for. So we're flexible because everything's customized based on your goals and objectives of the institution. So I just wanted to share that with you, that we have very flexible opportunity to work with institutions to meet their needs and where they need that additional support to get students back into their institution. Just quickly, this is how an online learning pathway actually works. So we want this to be smooth, seamless, and a great experience, obviously, for the students, so they stay on their educational journey and they stay at your institutions. So on the right-hand side here, you can see this is actually the Utah State website where we've developed the online pathway program for them. It's on their web domain. So a student would go into this website, actually select the courses that they want to take that have been identified by the institution for the learning pathway. They actually pay online on this website. Once they successfully complete the course, then they go right back into Utah State University. So that's how, at a very, very high level, a pathway works for the student experience. Again, we want this seamless. We want them to stay tethered to your institution. That's why everything we brand in our Pathways program to your institution. So let's talk a little bit about the student experience and some of the outcomes that we've seen. So I know Renee talked about just some of the unique things with our online learning program. But as a company, being student-centric is at the core of everything we do. And I just want to, as students go through that pathway, we've got to make sure that they're better prepared and ready for that academic journey so they can continue on. So that's a really big focus, and I'll talk about that support service that in just a minute as we go through the slide. So right now, we talked about that affordability piece, right? So right now, students pay for an online learning pathway a monthly subscription fee. It's a flat fee that is $130 a month, and that includes all of the gen ed courses that you identify in your pathway, meaning it could be from 2 classes to 4 classes. It really depends, but they pay a flat fee for each one of, or as they're in that online learning pathway. It includes all their books. It has their writing lab. We have live proctoring for final exams with ProctorU. And we talked about also not just the affordability piece, but the risk piece as well. So it decreases their risk for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not a huge investment that they're making to get back into a course. And also, we only transcript success. So for instance, if a student doesn't pass a course or they have to withdraw, that does not go on their transcript. So we're only transcripting success for them. The high quality gen ed courses, again, we talked about them being ACE reviewed and approved, our instructional design standards that we use, as well as the qualitative assessments and quantitative assessments for those informative and summative assessments that we have. All of our assessments are scored immediately in around 24 hours, turnaround time for that, so the student doesn't have to wait. Let's talk a little bit about the flexibility and convenience. So today, most enrollment models at institutions lack that flexibility, and students are looking at more options. So for instance, if they can't get into a course in the fall, they have to wait then. So with our courses being 100% online, they're asynchronous, competency-based, and students progress at their own pace. That means they can register today and basically start tomorrow. So they can start immediately. They don't have to wait until that next session is around and they need to register for it. But most importantly, and I know Renee talked a little bit about this, was around our student support services. So as part of our online learning pathways for our students, we provide that 24/7 support for tutoring. All tutoring is on demand. However, you can request a one-on-one tutoring session. Any student can. We also have student success coaches, and how I like to view those coaches are they help students who need that little extra bit of help and encouragement. Maybe they need some help with time management skills, study skills, degree planning, whatever that need may be, that student success coach is there for them. And that is also available 24/7. And then also they can schedule one-on-one coaching sessions. And then of course we have the advising support services that is available to them as well. That's available 7 days a week as well. Again, this provides a well-rounded, better prepared student who is basically gained confidence to be successful in an online learning environment. I talked a little bit about our model and the success and better experience for our students. I think this is going to be the next few slides are going to be pretty exciting for you. So these are relating to our student outcomes. So we've conducted several case studies with our partners, and basically what the study showed was that students who actually complete a StraighterLine pathway program progress at a much faster rate, have a higher retention rates, and also they have better graduation rates. So as you can see, as it relates to higher retention, we see that from our studies that over a 2-semester period of time, the students that went through a StraighterLine pathway versus not going through StraighterLine, there was a 14% increase over 1 year if they went through our StraighterLine program. And in the middle, you can see that they actually progressed much faster, and they're taking 28% more credits over 2 semesters compared to students who don't take the online learning pathway through StraighterLine. So basically, they're graduating on faster in a full term earlier. So that's pretty significant. And then lastly, on the graduation rates, those who went through a StraighterLine pathway in our studies, they're actually graduating at a 41% higher rate than the non-StraighterLine students. So I wanted to share those outcomes with you because I think they're very significant and say a lot about our program. And then also, as it relates to some additional outcomes with those studies that we conducted with our partners, the StraighterLine students did materially better across the board, including key subsegments, that being the minority and first gen, and the underserved populations. So normally those 2 subsegments are the more high risk students, and have, you know, what we're seeing is after going through our program, they're actually completing on time in their degree program. So what we saw just overall, the on-time performance rate for students that went through StraighterLine, the graduation rate was 10% higher in the first year compared to students who didn't go through a pathway program. And then for first gen students, we saw that there was a 9% on-time performance rate for those gen ed students that went through our program versus non. And then also, as you can see in the minority student base, we had a 14% higher percentage rate for those students that went through the program than those that did not. And lastly, I just wanted to touch on what are some of the outcomes for the institution. We talked about this several times. So everything's delivered under your brand. You keep your students in your pipeline. They're always your students. They're never our students. The ability to scale quickly, like Renee mentioned, is critical nowadays because it's really hard with the infrastructure and the resources institutions have to do it on their own. Our implementation typically takes from contract signing to launch date just about 60 to 75 days from contract signing, and you can start recruiting students into your pathway program. We invest in you, which is pretty exciting, that I talked about before. We pay all the upfront capital, infrastructure, technology, resources. You don't need anything today in addition to what you already have on campus to launch a program. You're also going to get to leverage our learning management system. There is no implementation or ongoing fees because, like I mentioned, we invest everything in you and your success. In the end, what we're helping you do is grow enrollments, giving you an alternative funding resource right now, because I know we're all looking for sources of new funding. Also, we have seen such a significant increase in student yield and persistence, and they graduate faster. So that's a definite great benefit to the institution. Also, you're going to maintain that institutional control. You make all the academic decisions for your program. And again, it's customized based on your goals and needs for the identified student populations that we collaborate with you on. It's a very transparent partnership. You're going to have a dedicated strategic partnership team who's responsible for the success of the online learning program at your institution. I think lastly, we talked about how can we help you improve your rankings also. And that's just because we only transcript success. So we don't transcript failure. So never will a student actually be impacted their transcript. That's not going to impact your rankings. And also your students are better prepared for the academic rigors of college. So I just wanted to share some of those outcomes that we've seen for our institutions and what some of the benefits are of an online learning program. Quickly, I'm just going to touch on a few of our pathway partners. As you can see, we have a nice variety of schools. We've got some land-grant institutions like Utah State and a couple others. We have 2 innovative nonprofit schools. And of course, we have a pretty large statewide system. Compete LA is the name of the actual program. And we're helping them with, there's about 650,000 Louisiana residents who have some college but no degree. So we're really helping getting those students back into their pipeline so they can complete their degree. And then lastly, I'm just going to leave this with a quote for Renee. She pretty much said it best. So I'm going to just stop here, open it up for questions, discussion for the group. So Bob, I will turn it back over to you if you want to go ahead and start that, or however you want to move forward.
Okay, thank you. You want to drop shared screen then? And I'm sure the folks have got lots of questions. I'm just going to let you pile on. So address your questions to Renee or to Melissa or to Mike, and let's roll.
This is Daniel Pack from UTC. You have mentioned earlier that these programs and courses actually are labeled as a part of a particular university courses. So the question has to do with who owns these courses and where's the IP rights lie?
Mike, do you want to take that, or do you want me to take it?
Sure, happy to. So these are our courses, and you know, the pathway, as Melissa explained, is, you know, students take courses from us, pay us, branded like your UTC or whatever your institution is, but they're actually on our platform, on our Moodle system, and those are courses that, as she said, ACE approved, DIAC, et cetera. And you know, the students get through and come out kind of better, as Melissa talked about in some of the data that we have so far. And yeah, so then they would be, you know, re-enrolled into your institution after that.
So quick clarification, Mike, they transfer in from you, correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
I would like to add on to Mike's comment. At Utah State University, Daniel, one thing that we did, because we have it set up so our USU online courses, our department owns all of our courses, and our faculty, they own the IP rights for the content for most of our USU online courses. And so the way that we handled our StraighterLine partnership with them is that we had faculty members, our curriculum committees, review the StraighterLine courses, learning outcomes and courses, and approve them within their curriculum that they met the learning outcomes. We have general education curriculum or general education learning outcomes across the state as well at our institution. And we had to make sure that the courses met both standards. And we had faculty within the disciplines review those courses to make sure that they met those outcomes so they felt comfortable in offering them and using them as USU courses. And then the way we're doing it is that they're the ones that review them. So it doesn't go through, it's got quite, it takes a while to do that, but it is a good way of doing that so that you feel comfortable about that.
So were there any needs of making modifications or customizing course contents so that it would fit with the desired outcomes of a particular department or a program?
So with the 3 courses that we went live with in the fall, there was not. They were able to approve them and they were able to offer them because it met all of the learning outcomes. Now we're moving into, as we move into these new pathways that I mentioned, we're looking at more of the portfolio of the StraighterLine courses. And we just actually did an initial review of those and it came back pretty good, but there were a couple areas where we had some gaps and we're going to be addressing how we want to handle that. Nothing significant though, nothing that's going to stop anything. Mainly in Utah, we just changed it so like our English requirement needs to have a verbal outcome, not just a written one. And in actuality, none of our online classes have that yet. And so that it's just something we're gonna have to address with maybe another course or another certification and just realign that expectation for those general education outcomes.
I've got a question for Renee and maybe StraighterLine. This is John Steyer from University of Tennessee, Knoxville. How many courses will USU accept from this program, Renee?
Right now, we are determining that. We haven't made a decision yet. My hope is that we will be able to bring in as many as we do from other schools and follow the standard. You know what I mean? Like we have up to like, I think there's, 30 or something credits that are like the general education. But our curriculum committee they're reviewing that right now.
Okay. And then the other question I have is a little bit more, there's 2 related ones, a little bit more philosophical. Does not transcripting failure actually cause a disservice to the student later on when they might run into a little bit of trouble and an advisor, say at Utah State or wherever, is trying to understand how all of a sudden can this student be failing something when previously everything was rosy? And then secondly, is transcripting only success in ethical practice?
That's a great question, John. So for us at Utah State, for the courses that we are doing right now in our current pathway, they're the remedial courses. They're the preparatory courses for English, math, and student success. So for us, they're getting a certificate. And we are certificate, and we are like we are recording it for their comprehensive learner record. And then once they move in and then we start these other pathways, we'll probably be determining how we do transcript those and have those conversations. We actually haven't even brought that up. That hasn't even come up in our curriculum and our faculty meetings yet. So that's a really good question. From my professional experience across the board, not just at Utah State, but when I worked at Southern New Hampshire and Western Governors University, it's more about focusing on the student success milestones. And so they don't tend to keep track of the failures. It's kind of like, it's because these courses are open-ended and they can go as fast as they want. and or slow as they want. It's really personalizing the education experience, which I think that with those mega schools, they find there's more value in that. So, but it is a good ethical question, I guess, to ask. And I don't really have the answer for that per se from a faculty perspective.
Thank you.
So I'm Angela Gibson. I'm with Institute of Agriculture, and I've worked at UTK for a lot of years in enrollment management. So when you onboard a new institution, how do you upscale your resources, and are those resources dedicated to a particular institution and customized?
So Mike, do you want to answer that about the strategic partnership team?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we do. Is, you know, part of our value to institutions like Utah State and the other ones that we work with is we do have the ability to scale. And, you know, part of that comes from the fact that separate from our university business, we've got a legacy business with, you know, 40-ish thousand enrollments there. And so that's how we kind of built this business is really understanding how to get to 40,000 plus ability to coach, to nudge, to support, writing support, proctoring, all of those things. And you know, as each one of these partnerships is different, the expectation of the institution is different. Some want to get really big and others want to get big. And so we're able to you know, add the resources required for each one of those kind of scaling rate scenarios. But I mean, we have some very, very big partners like WGU and other partners that, you know, will never get to the scale of WGU, but we fully support them in the many thousands of enrollments.
So are they custom? So are those dedicated staff to a specific institution, and they're not trying to go back and forth between 2 or 3 different institutions to understand which rules and what they need to say?
Yeah, really good question. So as you can imagine, some of our resources are dedicated, some are not. Like the enrollment folks, you know, would be dedicated to Utah State or WGU or whatever. The other ones, like, you know, writing support or you know, some of the other, you know, proctoring, coaching, some of the more generic stuff is not dedicated. But the important people that are like, you know, marketing enrollment folks are dedicated and fully understand the pathway, fully understand the handoff between the institution and StraighterLine and understand the processes needed at each one of the institutions that, as you guys are aware, will be radically different from institution to institution.
That's been my experience from being working with StraighterLine. Is we've had the same kind of group of people like that's helped us plan it out, and we have ongoing meetings, like weekly meetings with the admissions, is because this is an enrollment initiative, and it's usually the same people that are involved with it, and they helped us create our student journey, and they actually helped us in regards to, because they've done this at other places, there were like nudges and things like that that we weren't doing that they recommended that now our admissions people are doing. And so they kind of work like kind of as a team, and they exchange, I bet you we exchange emails on a, you know, every other day basis. So I think that that's what I've experienced so far, is that it's been the same group of people, and they came on board with us, they stayed on board with us, and they kind of know our stuff better than like sometimes even some of our new people. So, you know, as they grow and that, I don't know, they'll continue to do that, because, you know, when you grow, you add people to things. But from my experience in the last 6 months, 9 months, it's been very consistent. Honestly, I even reached out sometimes to the president, like if I have questions and stuff, and he even responds to me. So I found that they've been very responsive in regards to that. And we've been tricky. We've been asking them for things that, like, you know, I ask them for things all the time that I need help with when I'm, you know, talking to, you know, faculty senate or things like that, because, you know, there are a lot of things, people have a lot of questions. And so they've been very responsive in that regard.
Yeah, and we do have what we call SPT, Strategic Partnership Team, which Renee is referencing right here, that is they don't do more than 3 partners, and most of them do 2 partners, depending on the size and the scale. So that person, there's a managing director responsible for everything that will lead to success of Utah State or WGU or whoever. And all of these are customizable pathways, different by schools. So we have a set of best practices that we bring that, you know, having done this for a long time and worked with a number of universities, we have a set of best practices, all of which are customizable given the scenario that and the accomplishments that we're trying to do at each institution.
I want to jump in with a question related to what appears to be a really phenomenal change in the mindset of the student. So we start out with a student who, through their past 4 years in high school or wherever they've been, has demonstrated a certain level of academic achievement that is not acceptable to the institution. And then after they go through the StraighterLine experience and they're returned to the institution and they're taking courses from the institution, so there's no StraighterLine involvement in this. And these people they retain longer, they take more hours, they graduate better. And I think that's miraculous and sort of a lesson as to what our institutions not doing that they should be doing, that StraighterLine has found the secret sauce for turning the mindset around of these students. It's incredible.
All right, I have a couple of questions.
Wait.
Oh.
There's no answer to that as to how what's the secret success?
So I wanted to comment, Bob, on that. I wanted to say that I think one thing that I don't know about all of you, but I'm a post-traditional learner. I keep going to school and I'm a learner, and I've never been great at like high stakes direct assessment testing. And most adult learners that I've worked with that are coming back to school, there's a little bit of flexibility that's needed, right? We're parents, we're workers, we take care of our parents, our children, our animals. And that flexibility, to be able to have that flexibility to learn, is really, really important. And I think that in the traditional higher education structure of being, you know, fall, spring, summer, and we have a rigid term schedule on that, I think that makes it a little harder to allow for some of those things that happen. We have military people being deployed. So I think that flexibility has been key for success. I think that's why these models are working, is because of the flexibility. And so I think that's one thing, is just being able to be more flexible and focusing on what the students' needs are, not necessarily, and nobody please take offense to this, but not always thinking about what's best for just the academic faculty member and when they want to teach the course. It's got to be about when the students can take it. We're very much consumer driven, and I think that having a little bit more flexibility is really going to be valuable for us, all of us, moving forward. That's just a Renee opinion.
So this is Angela again. I just want to weigh in on the things that I wrote down a few minutes ago. To me, it sounds like you're really getting the more motivated students, people who really value education, because the people who are not so motivated and don't value education aren't going to sign up in the first place. So, but anyway, I agree that this is a great pathway. It sounds like a really good process to get the people in who aren't traditional or just fall below those standards. So kudos.
Yeah, if I can follow on to what Renee just said, I think the flexibility, 100%. Many learners learn at their own pace. The other thing that I think is a difference maker for us as a business, proved out in our partnerships, is that the wrapping around the student with the support that they need. And that's, 24/7 support. That's the coaching, the correct amount of nudging, how are you doing? You signed up for the next term. Where are you? What help do you need? What's going on in your life? Those heavy touches, which a business like ours is able to scale to support that, is kind of I think an important piece of it. So flexibility, and then it's the high touch, the support around making sure that Mike is successful, understanding why Mike is taking a course or a set of courses, and are you achieving your goals, and how are you doing? What can we do to help you? How can we help you solve personal or academic problems? I think that's a big part of it for us too, is that scalable support to be able to deliver that.
Well, I'm applauding, Mike, that you've done that in such a way that it's transformed the mindset of that student, because I'm guessing that when they go into the institution and they don't have your services, they have created a sense of will to graduate that you flip the switch on.
I do think that's the case. That's kind of what our data has shown so far, is that with or without it, and without it, there has to be something else that'll motivate these folks, and they've learned to learn in an online space is kind of how we position.
Yeah. Well, that's the sort of secret that I was getting to. David, I cut you off.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'll probably cut you off.
Which I'm not ashamed of, by the way.
One statement more than anything else, and the second is a question. The idea that someone applies to a particular public college or university and doesn't get a rejection letter, but instead gets a letter saying, you're accepted, but here's the link you need to go before you start a class, I find to be very interesting from a public good point of view, and as a taxpayer of a state, that the citizens get this access. I find the irony that it takes a private company to come in and partner with a public institution to deliver that. So that's just sort of my philosophical statement, especially around this concept of ethics. Second question is, I'm trying to understand the revenue model. Y'all are charging a monthly subscription, so they're paying that, put it on the credit card, y'all charge each month. What is the least expensive pathway? They could take up to 4 classes at a time. If it's asynchronous at their own pace, what's the quickest they could exit without their credit card being hit again for another month? And then second of all, is there a cost revenue sharing, or is it just y'all are increasing the end value that wasn't going to show up at the university to begin with, and therefore they're getting the state and tuition dollars downstream from a transfer student?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll answer, Renee, please. But most of the pathways are 2 or 3 courses. If we look across all of our partners, I think there's maybe somebody got 4 courses in there. Students can take as many as they want. It's $130 a month. If they can get all, call it 3 courses done in 30 days, then that's it. It's $130. There are no fees to the institution. We make our revenue by the number of students that go through, and $130 per month per student. Our value proposition to the institution is what we've been talking about here. We think that student is a better student. They've gotten through the pathway. They've earned their admission in the case of Utah State, and we hand you back a student that's better, ready, proven that they can do what they need to do to be successful within Utah State. So all of our fees are from the student credit card, and there's no charges to the institution. We invest all of our money up front to work with our SPT team and the regions of the world to build the model, build the pathway that works. We invest our capital and intellectual property and human resources to do that if we think there's enough value for us to do that. And we get our revenue from the student monthly fees.
Like John Steyer, I've got maybe 2 unrelated questions. First one's easy. Where do you get your instructors from? What are their backgrounds like? That's the first question.
So PhD, multiple faculty from everywhere, all over, approved by, we have a chief learning officer, but yeah, vast majority are PhD folks.
So you contract with them separately, I take it, right?
Yeah, but just to be clear, these are asynchronous, right? The faculty develop the courses, but they're asynchronous courses, right? So there's
Yeah.
right.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, there's a national conversation going on now about how universities are doing a disservice to adjunct faculty by not paying them very well. So anyways, the other thing I want to say is your 24/7 service is incredible. I wonder how you get that done, and this is a two-part question too. How do you get that done? Who's doing it? And secondly, if a student has a question then about USU, like Renee was talking, the students are actually kind of in USU. How do they understand the distinction that the courses they're taking from you are not necessarily USU courses, but if they have a USU question, how do you help them navigate that to get to the right group or party at USU? So again, two questions. How do you provide that 24/7? And how do you help the student navigate to USU questions?
Yeah. Renee, you want to take
my portion of that? So when I told you about how we sit down and we designed our student journey, we build into the student process what like we build into the process where we have handoffs, right? Really clear handoffs that's set up, and we talk and the students know, and the students are aware of that. So for them, they call and they get help, and they are aware of who they need to talk to based on the responses and the emails that they get back, and then we provide links and texts and that, so they know where to go and they know who to talk to. In all honesty, I don't even think sometimes they know they're talking to StraighterLine. I think a lot of times they think they're talking to USU people because if it's anything about the courses, it all goes through StraighterLine and StraighterLine's faculty members and coaches, and then their partnerships with the other people that they have. If it's something around policy or admissions or enrollment with USU, then they have the general information and then they hand it off to a USU person. We have one FTE person, his name's Jeff, that works with them, and they provide his information, and then they say, call him at this time. And then because he's not working 24/7, to your point, John, USU, we're not on 24/7, but they provide the responses and the emails so that they know who to get a hold of during the times, and then they reply back. But you realize too, this is all pre-enrollment, and we're getting ready to do the phased enrollment after that. And so give me about 6 months and let's have another meeting, and then I'll tell you how we're handling the rest of it, because we're figuring that out right now, because those are great questions. We've got to figure some of that stuff out and make sure we use the right
You go to the APLU conference, Renee?
I maybe, yeah, I have been there before. If they have it this year. So
there's a survey out now, fill it out.
Okay. I also think I wanted to say something around, because David, you brought this up, and so did you, around ethics and the ethical piece of it, and that interests me as well, because I'd love to sometime, maybe offline, if you don't mind, if I can call you and chat with you about it, because from my perspective, I feel like if I don't provide these options and these pathways in giving people, I feel like education is a stepping stone to improving your life, and that everyone should be able to have access to it. So for me, I'm whatever pathway I can do and provide success, I want to do that. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that, because obviously our higher ed institutions, we're not in a position to scale quickly, and we need to have some partnerships. So sometime I would love to chat about that, if you guys don't mind if I reach out individually with you and chat with you about that, because I'm sure I will have those conversations with other people, and I'd love that. Did I answer your question, John, on that? Okay.
Hey, John, and then how do we do the 24/7 support? So we in-house it where it makes sense, enrollment advisors and outreach and nudging, but we also use the partners that you expect, like ProctorU for proctoring, Smart Thinking for tutoring, those kind of things where it makes sense that those capabilities exist to do that, turn it in for that kind of stuff. So.
Okay, this has been a spirited discussion, and I'm going to have to bring it to a close, but in order to do that, I want to give Mike and Melissa Renee opportunity to make any final comments, and so I'll let the three of you decide what closing thoughts you want to leave in our mind as we finish here. Mike?
Maybe, do you want to kick it off, or Mike? I don't care, either way.
Go ahead, Melissa, all yours.
Yeah, so, you know, first of all, again, thank you for your attention today. Great questions and love the discussion. I'd love the opportunity to talk to each one of you a little bit more about if there are some pathways we can help you out with the institution. Love feedback from you as well on your thoughts on the session, and feel free to reach out to me. I just appreciate, again, Bob, for you getting this set up. So.
Yeah, very nice to meet everybody. Thank you so much for giving us the time to share a little bit about what we're doing. Special shout out to Renee for participating with us in this. Thank you very much for that. And it's very nice to meet everybody. Thank you for your time.
And for me, I just thank you for letting me tell you about what we're doing. And I put my email in the chat, so if you want to maybe reach out to me if you have other questions about how we've handled things, I'm happy to chat with you. Just as well, even if you disagree with me and would love to chat, I love those conversations as well, because that's how I learn. And at the end of the day, everybody says, was your pilot successful? And I always say that I think it is, because it has showed our leadership here at USU and within the state that we can reach out to vendors and have successful relationships and do the things we need to do. And so from that perspective, I feel it's a huge success, and I encourage others to try to have faith in that in other people. So thank you for your time.
Well, and I appreciate that all of you have engaged in this. We're looking through this series for interesting and provocative alternatives all the way back throughout.
Thanks, all.